Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we will be discussing some rather sad news for most Sharks fans. Patrick Marleau, it has been more or less confirmed, will not be re-signing or signing with the San Jose Sharks for this season. Now, of course, Marleau found himself with the Leafs for the past couple of years after having been with the Sharks for many years, his entire career prior to that. And going into his third year with the Leafs just couldn't afford to keep him there with huge contracts coming up for their players, Matthews and Marner. So what they ended up doing was packaging him with a first-round pick and trading him to the Carolina Hurricanes so that they could buy him out because the Leafs couldn't afford to do so. Now, Marleau did not want to play with Carolina. He said he really only wanted to play with the Sharks, which is why the Hurricanes didn't just keep him and use him on their roster and did in fact buy them out. But now it has been confirmed that the Sharks have decided to maybe go a bit younger and not re-sign Patrick Marleau. So where does that really leave the Sharks in terms of a lineup? Well, it definitely means that they're going to have to go younger, unless, of course, Doug Wilson has something up his sleeve in these last couple of weeks prior to the opening of training camp. Because down the left wing and down the center position, the Sharks seem rather strong. They've got Meyer, Kane, Sorensen, and Goodrow on the left wing, as I expect Gambrell will take a spot as the fourth line center. So some strong left wingers. Meyer definitely a first liner. Kane definitely a strong second liner, Sorensen a good third liner, and then the same is for centers. They've got Couture and Hurdle as their top two, very good players. Thornton as the third. Technically he has not signed yet, but unlike Marleau, where it was more like a maybe they'll sign Marleau, it's almost guaranteed, I'd say, that they sign Joe Thornton, just because he was extremely productive this past season. Marleau, on the other hand, was not that great with the Leafs this past year, and Thornton has said he will play another year. It will only be with the Sharks if he's decided to do. So I suspect Thornton will be back as the third line center, and then Gambrell as the fourth. But it is in the right wing position where the Sharks are lacking. Now, if the Sharks had made a move for Patrick Marleau, of course, he's an extremely well-known quantity. You know you're not going to get first line production out of him anymore, likely not even second line production, but you could potentially pass for Marleau on the second line, and the third line is likely where he would have spent a lot of his time. That's where his skill level aligns with at this point. But without Patrick Marleau, the Sharks really only have three capable right wingers, the first being LeBanc, who could technically sneak his way into the top six. He's likely going to be tried there this season, but he's definitely not a first-line forward at this point. The second line, I guess you can get a pass with. Then there's Melker Karlsson, who you could go with on the third line, or Lukáš Radil. Radil actually did spend some time up in the lineup this past season. He did show some sparks offensively, so it's possible Radil actually gets that third-line spot, and it's Melker Karlsson who finds himself yet again on the fourth line. But as you can see, there is a big hole on the second line, or even on the first line, for a right winger. The Sharks don't really have any sort of known quantities to fill that spot, again, unless they make a move here in these last couple of weeks before training camp. This means that the Sharks are going to actually have to go into their pool of prospects to try and get an unknown quantity to perform at a top six level. But it is dangerous to go in, especially when you don't have a guaranteed prospect. You take a look at some of the other teams that have been rebuilding for the past couple of years. You're taking a look at the Rangers, and let's say they have an open spot in their lineup. Well, they can just expect Capo Caco to come fill in that spot. Or if you're looking at the Devils and maybe there's an opening as a second line center, well, you've got Jack Hughes, who's more or less likely going to fit that. But with the Sharks, there are, of course, a couple of promising prospects. Ivan Chekovich, Sasha Shemilevsky, but it's certainly nothing is confirmed that these are going to be top six players right away coming into this next season. And so it is certainly a dangerous game for Doug Wilson to play, and that's the reason why I do suspect Wilson might actually have, an ace in his sleeve trying to make a move here in these past couple of weeks, which could also be one of the reasons why he hasn't yet made the move to actually just sign Thornton. He maybe still wants these few millions of dollars available to give a different player a contract, and so that might be something that is in the future. But if Wilson sort of has his hands tied, doesn't end up being able to close on any of these other potential available free agents, and he decides to just sign Thornton, call that the roster, well, the Sharks are definitely playing a dangerous game trying to go for their prospects now that they've committed to not signing Marleau. But definitely, the lineup is going to shake up to be quite interesting. In the top six right wing spots, LeBanc and what is potentially going to be a prospect is probably going to be one of the more interesting things to watch going to next season, especially when you consider LeBanc's contract and everything like that. So the Sharks lineup is still technically very much up in the air, and I'm excited to see how it goes in less than a month. Class dismissed.